welcome to the Booknerds Podcast. Today it's going to be really special because, as you guys, some of you might know that we are based in Dehradun, and we are going to talk about a book which is about DOON, and the author also hails from DOON. In fact, I'd like to say that if it wouldn't be wrong if I call him synonymous to DOON. His name is Mr. Raj Kanwar, and he has written a couple of books. The first one was released a couple of years back. It was called ONGC, The Untold Story, and it told us about the the big company that ONGC is, the beginnings, how it was established in Doon, and the entire, chronicles of ONGC. This was the first book. And of course, the author has been part of ONGC as the first ever PRO. So he knows a lot about ONGC and DOON, of course. The book at hand is, of course, Dateline Dehradun, and we'll be talking about this. On the panel today is Vidushi, Nautiyal, Shubhi Belwal, and Divya Singh. They are all part of Team Booknerds, and they'll be expressing their opinions about the book, how they loved it, or maybe didn't like some parts, or on from a very literary perspective, what is their opinion on the book, the writing style, etc., etc. And especially, it's the entire panel is from Dehradun, so it would be interesting to know how they felt about reading this book. And the book also deals with a lot of nostalgia, the old Doon, which all of us love and have loved over a period of time. Some on this panel are too young to know about that, but I'm sure they'll have an opinion on that as well, about the new and the old and the future, of course. A little bit about the author. He is a very senior journalist. He has worked with the top newspapers of the country, the Indian Express, the Tribune, Statesman, you name it, he has been there. And he's almost reaching 90, so he has seen it all happening. And the book gave me a lot of um, great nostalgia during these times, especially lockdown time. You would love to know about your city, of course. And I was, of course, discussing with our team members that we don't get to know about our city and our state much. If you are convent educated, you don't get to see much of that. So this book was kind of a great initiation, I would say. And then we all was delve deeper. Enough from me. What I'll do is I'll go quickly to Divya Singh and ask for her opinions on the same. Very quickly, Divya, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? What are your interests? And then we'll, of course, go on to the book and how you loved it, liked it. And yeah, please.
Thank you, sir. Guys, my name is Divya Singh. I am a student and I love writing, reading, knowing about people, food, and of course, everything basically. Being from Dehradun, my experience has been incredibly good. And there is this thing, we live in a city, but we don't really explore it the way we explore other cities of the country. So this is something I really liked about the book. The book emphasized on the fact that we are living in a city and it's so beautiful and we should really appreciate the beauty of it. And Dateline Dehradun has been something which gave me an insight into how Dehradun used to be. And that sort of made me fall in love, even more than I am already, with my city, with the people here, with everything that has been.
Great. So later on, I'll also ask you why you love Doon. Let's go to Shubhi and for her opinion, initial impression, as they say in YouTube language, they call it the initial impression of a commodity. I wouldn't call it a commodity. It's an experience altogether. But what were your initial impressions about the book?
Yeah. So I am a PhD scholar, and I was born in Doon, and I have been living in Doon since then. And I went away for my college education, and those were the days when I really experienced and realized my love for my city. Because when I was away, I came to know what I was missing, and that made me love my city more. And what I realized from the book is that it's not just the place and the things around, the like the things for which Dehradun is famous, the weather, the beauty of the nature and stuff, but it's also the people who are living in the city. And for here, if I talk about Dehradun specifically, the people who are living in Dehradun who have contributed personally and socially through their works, through their lives to the city, that actually makes the sense and creates the I would say that makes the complete essence of the place where we live in. It contributes to that essence, and that is magical. As we, experience that through the book, all the people who have been living in the city, contributing, those who went abroad and lived the life they wanted to, and the different experiences they got through their travels and all through those different phases of their life, and then they're coming back to Doon and contributing to the society and people here. So that journey of knowing that journey of people here and being able to relate to it was amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Let's go to the energetic Vidushi and ask for her initial impressions about the book. She's again a thorough do-night. So, yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Vidushi and I'm in college and I'm a media and communication student. And there is this quote in the book that goes like, the book is an amalgamation of the past and the present, and it's so completely accurate because the book is not just history and facts. It is a story, an ongoing story of so many people, and getting to read that and be a part of that story of stories of people who made Dehradun what it is, it's such an amazing thing. So that's what I love about the book. And I didn't always used to appreciate Dehradun for what it was, to be honest. When I was younger, I wasn't so happy that it was such a small and quaint town, that nothing ever happened here and it was so stunted sometimes in its growth. But as I grow older, I appreciate that all the more when I see all these fast paced towns, and not even towns anymore, cities and these capitals that are just, oh my god, the people don't even have time to rest or have a moment of peace. I look around Dehradun and I am so amazed at about the lives of the people and how peaceful and how slow, to be honest, in the most positive sense it is.
Yeah, Vidushi, picking up from your point, that you felt that the city was very stunted and it didn't have a lot going on, like the big rock concerts and stuff. We didn't have them. I mean, they were mostly in colleges and stuff and schools perhaps. But this line from the book on page 6, um, it's written by Mr. Raj Kanwar that despite the influx of refugees in 1947, Dehradun maintained its character as a small, leisurely town where unhurried pace was a virtue. Unhurried pace was a virtue and speed a taboo. So most of us then walked while a few others rode bicycles. Life then was laid back. So this line, unhurried pace was a virtue and speed a taboo. It's just defines Dehradun. I mean we as Dunites are never in a hurry. I don't think so. I have met any pure Dunite who would be in a hurry to get somewhere. Right? We are always laid back. We like our quaint cafes.
There is this innocence and beauty in the nature and the unhurried pace that comes with it.
Yeah.
Not just in the people, but also the atmosphere.
Yeah, but it's the character comes from the people who lived here back in the 50s and before, even before that. And for a long while, this was the place to, for senior citizens to retire and relax and lead a very, very laid back life. So that has got into our DNA, and even the youth have become like that now. Sometimes it can be a bane, but mostly it's a boon. I mean, when you are not in a hurry to achieve everything quickly, or perhaps on the professional front, you uh, you are not impatient, and that serves you in the long run, perhaps.
Yeah, Doonites know how to take a step back and like relax. That's a great quality, I think, at least right now when there is such a race for everything that is going on, such a rat race in every field. So we know that when it's time, we need to take a step back and just relax and let go.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
amazing.
So very quickly, before we get dive deep into the book, let's tell everybody our top three things we love about Doom. Okay, and we'll start with Divya. Just mention the top three things you love about Doom in very short, and then we'll go on to the book. And
Okay, so the three things
and you can't say momos. Okay, momos are off the table. We are not talking about.
So, guys, the three things I really love about Dehradun is number one, the mountains. They are beautiful, and I can't emphasize enough on how beautiful they are. Like, they are everywhere, they are huge, and they almost feel like they are my friends. So, the mountains, and of course, the diversity. Every region you go in, there's something different about it. There's something that region is famous for, and the culture. Like, you go to some household and there will be people who will be welcoming and there'll be warmth, and these are the three things I personally love: the mountains, the culture, and the diversity.
Cool. Let's go to Shubhi.
So the three things that I love about Doon, it's a very difficult question, I would say, because there is like it's a long list, really. But I would begin with one of the points, what Divya has mentioned, mountains. Definitely, like Dehradun is a valley. We are surrounded by mountains, so we have to love the mountains, and the mountain and the natural beauty. The other thing that I really admire, not just about Dehradun, but about Uttarakhand as whole, is the society, the very humble and very simple people. The crowd, they are very humble, very simple. And the other thing will be, just because I have to mention few things over here, so I would say Paltan Bazaar.
Okay. Yeah. Who doesn't love Paltan? Who doesn't love Paltan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Vidushi, go for it.
So I think you did it really wrong that you prohibited saying momos from the list, and I'm very vexed right now because momos is my one true love. It will, because I can't say momos, I'm going to say cafes are like one of the favorite things about Dehradun, because there are just so many cafes and there is such an unlimited variety. Like, we have swinging chairs in cafes and like all these designs of walls that are just so, oh my god, I can't even finish talking about those cafes. About Dehradun that I love are the roads, but not the potholes. I'm talking about the ones that are near the Pacific Mall region, about the Missouri diversion ones, the empty, really big and forest-filled roads that are just, oh God, so good to drive on. And the third thing that I love about Dehradun is the infrastructure. All those houses that are dated back from the British Raj era,
Yeah.
they have a beautiful infrastructure that I can't even. They're
Especially,
so,
especially
and
the,
I
especially the signature. We have the bajri, the stones, especially in the areas in Dalanwala houses and Vasant Vihar houses and many others. The signature Bajri, which also, if people don't know about that, it serves a different purpose. I mean, it lets the water seep into the ground and increases the water level of the groundwater level. So it has got manifold reasons that you don't want to build concrete. If you have that going on, don't build concrete over it. So that's another advantage. Great. So three things that I love about Doon, especially it's the first one is pretty natural. The I love the schools and all the schools. So in fact, in the book, it is written that the first school ever in Dehradun was Colonel Brown, which I didn't know about. I always thought that it was the Doon School, and then came the Doon School later, and WELHAM's, and of course S.T.JOSEPH'S academies and all the other day schools, wonderful schools. And in fact, even now the boarding schools and the newer ones, and have been to some, and they are so, I mean, they're fantastic, even though they are new. But I guess the salubrious uh, climate and surroundings have given that impetus, those schools, especially the Kasigas over there, and the Oasis, and all those schools are so wonderful. The first point I would like to say is that. The second ones are the Maggie points, which have come in later on, but the locations are so amazing, and even the other cafes, but Maggie points are my favorite. And third one are of course the institutions that make the city so wonderful, and the IMAs and FRI, and the architecture, the amazing architecture. The IRRS is there, and Survey of India, and so many others. I mean, Ordnance Factory, and you name it. I mean, all of them are here, and that makes the city so much more special. I forgot ONGC totally, but ONGC is again such a mammoth organization. So yeah, that's about Doon. So now we would love to dive deep into the book, and the first part of the book, of course, we'll talk at the end, and I'll be discussing that. But the second part of the book is, list these men of eminence, and who have, come from Doon or have contributed to Doon. And so I would like to ask Divya to tell us more about that and the personalities that have been featured. Of course, a disclaimer here, if we miss anybody, don't kill us, because we'll have to, we can choose for the purpose of this podcast. And these personalities and these people are in no particular order. So don't, kill us for that in the comments, or, those Dehradun groups that are so passionate about Dehradun. So yeah, don't do that. Please, Divya, take it from here.
Thank you, sir. I read this somewhere, and it is my personal belief. What is a city without the people that inhabit it? Like, a city is incomplete without the people there. And in this book, Mr. Raj Kanwar has talked about men of eminence, many men who have been great, done great in their careers, in their lives, and who have set an example for all of us and have made us feel even prouder about the city we are living in. And these names include R.K. Bakshi and Deepak Ramola and so many more. But I'd like to start with Ruskin Bond, because he's a legend. Like, all of us know him, and I remember this one time I went to Missouri, and there was this market, and I was walking around, and I did not know that there was any way I could relate it with Ruskin Bond. But someone came and told me that that bookstore in the corner is where you'll find him. And I was like, oh my God, is he here today? And they were like, no, he only comes on Saturdays. And I came back heartbroken, and I'm looking for the one Saturday where I'll go again and meet him. So guys, Ruskin Bond is someone all of us know. But the thing is, we don't know his journey. And in the book, his journey has been, explained in such a manner that you feel even more related to him. The next person I would like to talk about is Bill Atkin, and I did not know him before reading the book, and it came to me as a surprise that how fascinated this person is by nature. I mean, we look at mountains and trees and rivers and we smile, but when he looks at mountains and rivers, his eyes sparkle. That is the type of a writer he is when it comes to traveling. He is a Scot by birth, an Indian by choice, and he used to teach in Kolkata, I believe, and obviously he's very close to books.
In fact, Booknerds have been lucky to have hosted him at a session in English Book Depot, and English Book Depot has also been mentioned in the book. And this session was before you guys were on the team, of course. But we have hosted it kind of 2 times. Once for a book called Magic in Missouri, where he just dropped in as a panelist for the author. And second time we invited him, and he came down from Missouri and did a session for one of his couple of his books. So we have been lucky regarding that, and more on the writers in the later part of the podcast. But let's continue with Divya.
Yeah, so I was saying that.
Yeah, Vidushi was saying something. Yeah.
We hosted him twice, and I got to meet him neither of the times. Like, what a blasphemy!
It was just
That's bad luck.
It was just before you joined us, so you might not be aware about that. But that shows that you haven't checked out our photo album on Facebook. So doesn't matter.
So sorry for that, sir. When I was reading about Bill Atkin, there was something I came across that this person has written 14 books.
Yeah.
And I believe that's a hard number. Writing 14 books is actually not easy, and writing them with the same enthusiasm is even more difficult. So that was an amazing thing, and nature should be appreciated, and there are people like Bill Atkin who really look eye to eye with nature and who really see it for what it truly is. Moving on, I would like to talk about Naftaj Sarna. Now, he used to be the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, and he has had an amazing career of 36 years in that arena. One of the most significant postings were in Israel, where he served as the country's ambassador. He used to also be a columnist and a freelance journalist, and has written amazing books like We Weren't Lovers Like Then. So from the picture I got when I read the book Dateline Dehradun, I realized that this person has a lot of experience.
I was saying,
yes, sir.
That he has written the foreword of the book. So yeah, great that you mentioned it.
Oh, sir.
Yeah, he has written the foreword, and it's lovely. I mean, it encapsulates DOON in such a beautiful manner, and the DOON of old, not of now, because he must have spent most of his time then. But thanks for mentioning him, and people who read the book should read the foreword. Don't skip it.
Guys, the next person I would like to talk about is Alan Searle, who has written this book I really like. I personally have read it and have appreciated it so much, The Trotternamer, a Chronicle. Now, this book is a must-read, guys, but the one thing that really caught my eye about this person, apart from the numerous amount of awards he has and the experience, was that he doesn't have a mobile, he doesn't have a TV, he does not read newspapers, and he's so passionate. So I was like, oh my God, are people still like that? And this is something very different.
And you know what? Yeah. I met him once, and I did not you don't recognize authors by their faces, right? We know their books, but we don't necessarily know them by face. So I was just sitting with a friend, and of course he's also an author and a senior author, and this guy walks in and he's like, oh, I was just buying some vegetables and groceries for my home, and he was just talking to this friend of mine, and I was like, when he left, we just chatted for 5 minutes. Very simple guy. And when he left, I asked him who was that. And he said that was Booker Prize nominee Alan Seeley. And I was like, what? Why did you tell me? So this happens in Doon, This happens in Doon. You go to a stationery shop and you bump into Nayantara Sehgal. I mean, that has happened to me personally. So these things keep on happening, and this is the fourth point which I am allowed to do because I am the podcast host. This is the fourth point I love about the city, that you bump into writers. Like, yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And even in Mussoorie, the Landor part of Mussoorie, Bill Atkin, and these people are just walking there, Ganesh Sally. So this is another point that makes Doon very unique.
So moving on, the one thing I really appreciate about this author is that he doesn't try too hard, and he doesn't care what genre his book is about, and he doesn't have a timetable for writing a book, because many people do that. And the thing is, he writes when he feels like, and he writes freely from the heart. And I'd like to quote something he said in an interview with Raj Kanwar. Certain books were night out music, others dawn birds. And I felt so good by reading this line. And yeah, so the next person I would like to talk about is Dr. S Farooq. Now, he has published, his articles have been published in more than 200 papers in national and international journals. And he has spoken at so many conferences. Like, if I start numbering them, it would take like
it would be
months altogether. It would be ridiculous. That's true. And there is this title that the author gave him, the most sought after chief guest. And I have never heard something like that before. But when I read more, I was like, okay, that is why he's the most sought after chief guest. Not just in Dehradun, but in various parts of the country, because of his fluency in English, Hindustani, Urdu, and his understanding of subject. He's an impressive orator. Like, today you are asking him to talk about something, tomorrow something completely different, and still he'll be like, okay, this is a cakewalk, I can do this. So that's the amount of knowledge he has. He's a lover of Urdu poetry, and by lover, I don't mean just someone who loves Urdu poetry, but someone who really loves Urdu poetry. And he's a preacher of Islam, and he is so much more, and such a disciplined man and knowledge.
Divya, we have not even talked about Himalaya, the drug company, which he, started, and he's the founder. So imagine so much of this is him and more. I mean, it all started from Himalaya. I will tell you a personal experience. I'm dropping a lot of experiences, but I can't help myself. So I was supposed to interview Dr. Farooq, and I went there and to his office near ISBT, Dehradun, and we were welcomed, more than welcomed, and we were just sitting in his office, waited for a while for him to show up, and there were these pictures across his office, right? So many pictures with so many celebrities, prime ministers, etc., etc. Because he has got multiple PhDs and whatnot in chemistry and etc., etc. So, and Himalaya is a company which is at the top of everything in their field. So he had a picture with Swami Ramdev, and when he walked into the office, I asked him, like, isn't he supposed to be a competitor in the space, Himalaya and Patanjali? And he smiled. He just smiled, and after a pause, he told me, I'm not like that. I mean, doesn't matter. Who cares? Even if we are competitors, doesn't matter. So that shows, how evolved he is as a person. So I just wanted to add that very quickly, that that is the kind of liberal person and philanthropist also he is. So any other personalities you have for us, Divya?
Yeah, there is this one person, like I have known him like not obviously personally yet, but I know I read so much about him. That is Abhijay Negi. And to all the people, all the young bloods watching this podcast right now, Abhijay Negi is the person who started MAD or MAD or Make a Difference. And the tagline being Make a Difference by Being the Difference. So he was just sitting at home one day and watching the television, and he came across Aaj Tak, and talks are being held about the Bhopal gas tragedy. And that young man at the age of 17, he wanted to do something. So he went out and he started cleaning, and he invested himself in selfless service. And then just the community kept on growing. I have been part of some of their competitions and discussions as well. And it's so amazing to see that teenagers, people are wanting to do something for the society. And there was this thing he said in an interview when he was asked, how did you, in the initial stage, it's difficult to grow the community and add on people. But he just said that, मैं अकेला ही चला था जानिबे मंजिल मगर लोग आते गए कारवां बनता गया. And that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Not only has he made a difference himself, but the best part is that he has encouraged others and inspired others to make a difference by being the difference. And that was it for Men of Eminence from the amazing Dehradun.
Mr. Raj Kanwar has, covered a huge spectrum, because Abhijay being very young, and the others who are featured in the book are from different eras. So there is a huge spectrum where a lot of people can associate with the book and know more about them and appreciate them at a certain level. So we'll be going next to Shubhi Belwal.
Veteran journalist, businessman, and author Raj Kanwar has very aptly titled the book Dateline Dehradun. And as he discusses this in the back cover of the book, that the book is everything about Dehradun. So he has also told why he has kept the title Dateline. And as we know by now, that book has different sections, and one of my favorite section is Women of Substance. And here, like Sir said, that writer has covered a wide spectrum of people who are belonging to Dehradun, and a wide variety of experiences that they have gone through their lives, which makes their life so colorful and their contribution to the society so much more worthy. And there are a number of such women who have been discussed here, like Dr. Asha Rawal, who is the president of the Indian Medical Association, and we have Rakesh Dhawan, who is the member and elected leader of AIWC, All India Women's Conference. We have Jyotsna Barar, who is the principal of the WELHAM School, and she is a well-known educationist. We have Dr. Daljit Kaur, who was very popularly known as the lone student of SGRR PG College when it was basically known as the all-boys college. And she was the first woman to take her education from the university. And now, as we see that there has been such vast development that the girls have outnumbered the boys in the university, and it has become one of the major institution in complete Uttarakhand. And then we have, like I was mentioning, Dr. Indu Singh, and the book discusses her 48 years of journey with MKP Inter College, which is a very renowned women's college in Dehradun. Then we have Pooja Marwa, who is an event planner and writer of the book Pursuit Drawn by Destiny, which is an award-winning book. We have Ranjana Banerjee, who is the writer and journalist and has worked with Times of India. Jyoti Dhawan, who was the principal of Him Jyoti School and has contributed in the field of education at a very large level. We have Monica Talukdar, who is a very well-known artist from the city and has been contributing in the field of art for more than 60 years now, and her work have been exhibited in many institutions and organizations and events all over the country. And then we have Amba Kanwar, who is the wife of the author Raj Kanwar for 55 years now. And it's kind of very sweet that author has also mentioned his wife in the book and how she has contributed in his life and life he sees around himself in Dehradun.
I think that is always important with writers, especially because with writers you have to have a lot of patience because they are kind of mavericks, if I may call them, because they have not chosen the so obvious path. I mean, and of course, even financially, you don't get the kind of remuneration a guy working in IT sector or in a PSU might get. Although Mr. Raj Kanwar had all sorts of experiences and he has done everything under the sun that you can imagine. He has done business. He has, he's a writer. He's a journalist, and not and has successfully done all of that. But still, it's kind of very important to have a structure around you to achieve all of that.
Yes, yes. And like many more personalities are there, but here, as we have a very limited time span, I would like to talk about a couple of the personalities that have really touched my heart. One of them is Joe Chopra McGowan, who is the co-founder and executive director of Latika Roy Foundation, who has been contributing to the field of education, especially for the special children who are having variety of disabilities for a very long time now. And she was American, and then she married to a Doonite, and since then she settled here and has been working immensely for the society and its upliftment. And the book also mentions her contribution towards the EIC, that is the Early Intervention Center, which works for the children with disabilities and the early phase of their life, when it is very important to detect, to know what the problem is with the child and how it can be coped with. Because as Joe Chopra mentions in the book itself, that it is very important that the treatment or the counseling of the child should start at a very early age, so that the effects or the treatment can have better results. And also, she was very popularly known in the neighborhood as English Mem Sahab Jo Hindi Bolti Hain. So that was the kind of assimilation she had with the society, with the neighborhood, with the people she was working with, and still she's working in the field and inspiring so many of us. So another name that I'm talking here is Vandana Shiva. We all are familiar with her name, and she's a Dehradun-born personality who has worked extensively in the field of environment, and she's a very world-renowned environmental activist. She's also the member of the International Forum on Globalization, and she is very well-known writer as well, with 20 published books in her account. Then the books that she has written talks about culture, talks about environmental issues, and her contribution, her experiences with the theme. Also, she talks in the book about her experience. So she also mentions in the book how her journey started with the Chipko movement and how she spent the time in the Himalayas and how that shaped her perception, her opinion about the environment, which led her where she is today. And she also talks about the rights of nature and how they are now being discussed at global level in the book. And she's also talking about the Earth University that she founded in Navdanya farms, which are located in the Doon Valley. Other than that, the names which really striked with me were like Roshan Dalal, who is a very renowned writer, and she's very popular for her book like the puffin history of India and the puffin history of the world. And she basically writes on history, religion, and culture, and she's renowned for these books internationally.
Just wanted to pitch in with a couple of other names in women of substance. There's Dr.
Yes,
Jaskiran Chopra, who has written so many books,
yes,
and including Memories of Another Day, which again talks about nostalgia or nostalgia of
yeah,
Doon, which in the same territory as Dateline Dehradun. And of
hmm,
course, there's Anupama Khanna, who is a senior journalist with Pioneer and
hmm,
has been in
yeah,
all sorts of involved in all sorts of social initiatives also. And so just wanted to drop in those names. A lot of
and
other, yeah. So a lot the author has made sure that he has covered all women from all spheres of life. I felt that it was a very complete representation of women from Doon. He might have missed out on some, and I know that can't happen. I mean, you can't cover everyone, but it's sweet that he has done that, and he has covered a huge gamut of women from different spheres. So now, thank you, Shubhi. Thank you. We'll go to Vidushi, and here comes the most interesting part of the podcast. I mean, Dehradun is known as the school town of India, and some really popular schools here, which Vidushi will be talking about. And the author has been involved in and out with so many personalities from these schools. And over to Vidushi.
Okay, so first I'm going to show you how thick this book is and how many notes I had to make just to like cover all of this, and then I'm going to ask you to sympathize with me as I cover only 3 of the schools. I am sorry for leaving out any of the ones that I didn't cover, but then you can read the book on your own and figure out all the history for yourself. So I'm leaving that out for you to read. So starting the book, I thought that it was going to be very historical based and very fact based, and I was not going to have a lot of fun reading it because it's going to be like another history lesson, and who likes history anyway? But there is so much emotion between the lines, and there are so many anecdotes, personal memories that just makes the book so much more interesting and so much more than just a historical lesson about a small town. It's not just a small town anymore in the words of the author, and the, all the people that are mentioned here, they're just larger than life and so much more than that. So I never thought that I could be missing out on so much history of Dehradun, but I am. And reading Dateline Dehradun, I just feel so grateful that I am no longer oblivious and ignorant to all the hardships and all the struggles of the people. And the town, this wonderful town. And talking about history and people together, I'd like to cover the Doon School, who everybody has heard of. Like even newbies, when they step into the town, this is one name that everyone knows. And they have to, because like I have heard from real normal people, and multiple at that, that Dehradun was named after the Doon School. Like, what level of existence are you on? Because me too. I would like to be there. But it's amazing how influential a school can be. A single school that influences generations on end. So, coming to the Doon School, how Doon School started is just, it should be a book on its own, because there are so many struggles. There were so few resources at the time it was made, and so few benefactors and influencers to provide those the materials to make the school. And there is this man who has this dream. In the author's words, he is a visionary and a dreamer, and he's just courageous to do this thing, that to carry out this dream of his that he has, and that is Satish Rajan Das. And he is this man who has a dream to make a school that would uplift and uphold all the morals of nationalism and patriotism and freedom and he wants to carry that out, but he doesn't have enough resources. And so to carry that out, he takes up this job that he doesn't really want to take up because it would prove to be a stunt in his law career. He is from a completely blue-blooded upbringing, and he's a law student, and he studied in Britain, and he has this amazing education, but he came back to India because he wanted to provide all the education and all the benefits that he had to the people there. And so he came back with this dream, but he doesn't have enough resources to carry it out. So he's going to take up a job that is going to essentially destroy his law career, but he's going to take it up because he wants to fulfill the dream for all the people that are there. And did you know that the Doon school wasn't going to be based in Dehradun at first? It's so crazy to find that out because there were suggestions like Bhopal and Bangalore and central India, somewhere near Delhi maybe. And I was just so fascinated to find that out because how can Doon school not be in Dehradun? Doesn't it feel weird to hear that? The Doon school is such an integral part of our little town that it makes no sense for it not to be a part of it. But yeah, at first it wasn't going to be here, but then they found this government owned, Survey of India owned land that they were really interested in, and then they invested in that land. But due to the tragic and untimely death of Sir Rajendra Mukherjee, that plan was also stunted for a bit of time. But the silver lining was that it did come through, and in 1935 the school came to be, and it was just a dream. Even though the funds were quite few, it did pull through and it was amazing. So the two anecdotes that I really liked from the book that were about Doon school were, the first one is that, did you know that Jan Gan Man was first sung in the Doon school and thus made into a school song? Yeah, in the author's own words. I know, right? In the author's own words, the point to be noted is that the Jan Gan Man was first sung at the Doon school and made it a school song 10 years before India became independent, with an Englishman, Arthur Foote, as its first headmaster. This happened in 1937. And
that's amazing.
If that doesn't uphold the morals of the school of nationalism and patriotism and freedom, I don't know what else can.
True.
Another anecdote is that, again, did you know that the Doon school was a mini refugee camp in 1947 during the partition, and while it was ongoing, the extended family of two of the employees of the Doon school, Sartaj Dhaval and Vishwanath Kapoor. Sartaj Dhaval was the matron at the Doon school's Hyderabad house, and Vishwanath Kapoor was the housemaster at Jaipur house. And their extended family came all the way to the Doon school to seek refuge. They had so much trust in the Doon school, and it was like a family. And so while the school was closed for vacations, they gave them refuge and they gave them shelter, and so that they could stand on their feet. And then later they took houses and they took refuge in Dehradun, and they based their life around here. And it is such an example for the students who would be studying there, to know that their school had such humanity. Coming to the headmasters of the school, there are a lot of influential and powerful headmasters from the Doon school, but there is one that I would like to talk about because, oh my god, I love the philosophy he follows. Okay, so Matthew Raggett, the 10th headmaster of the Doon school, his philosophy was, in the words of the headmaster himself and of the author. Matthew's own innovation was eliminating the conventional practice of homework. Why burden students with load of homework during their well-earned vacations? Vacations are meant for relaxation and enjoyment with the parents and siblings, and not for arduous and somewhat boring chore of homework. And I'm like, faculty everywhere, please follow. Amazing philosophy.
In fact, I have an anecdote, a personal one with Matthew Raggett. And I think there was a Ruskin Bond session happening at the governor's house. And we were invited there, me and my wife. And so we were just sitting there pretty nervous because this was our first time to the governor's house. And we were like, we were not talking much to anybody. And so what happened was that this guy, tall guy, a Western guy walks in, and we are like, okay, he looks very confident, and he has got his child also with him, like a young child, and he sits there, and I'm like, I always try to make conversation, so I just started talking to him, and then he's asked me like, what do I do? And I mentioned that we promote the love for reading, and we have a book club community going on in Dehradun, and we are trying to do all of that and make this city very literature oriented. So that's a purpose. And he was listening very quietly, and he just said that I'm Matthew, and that's about it. He didn't introduce himself, what did he do and stuff. And then the topic went towards so he said that, why don't you do this in schools? So I was like, no, these schools are like, they are not so welcoming, and they don't invite us and all, and we have tried so hard. And I said, especially the boarding schools, boarding schools suck, and they don't invite us. And I started rambling in front of him for 5 minutes. I was just telling him that how bad are boarding schools, and true story. And he was just listening to me. And I gave all the examples also. I mentioned the schools and stuff, DOON school, WELHAM, etc. And at the end, when the Ruskin Bond session got over, he was leaving, and I said bye and all. Neha, my wife, also said bye. And then I asked him, what do you do? And he said, I'm the headmaster of the DOON school. I was like, you shouldn't have done this to me. I mean, don't do this. And he started laughing. And so it's weird how you bump into people, it's quite weird. And he was pretty cool about it. So that shows how evolved he was. I mean, now he is not here at the DOON school. He has been replaced. But how evolved he was, and rightly mentioned by you, how he thought about education.
Extremely. Only in Dehradun would you find celebrities and talk to them and not know that they're celebrities and influential people. Okay, so the DOON school also has a lot of very, very influential masters and teachers. And one of them is Sheil Vora, who was friends with the author. And they used to play cricket. And Sheil Vora is part of the extended family who seek refuge in the DOON school. And so that's so amazing that they were all friends here. Like, and some of them are, did you know Vikram Seth went to DOON school? Author of The Suitable Boy. What is happening? Like, we should have billboard posters everywhere just stating that, hey, this person went to this school and he was here in Dehradun. Like, why don't we have that? I didn't know. So, if you were thinking that female empowerment and all the female representatives were just confined to one area, you are so wrong, because the origination of WELHAM boys and girls, affectionately known as the WELHAM twins, was done by this and this fascinating woman I'm talking about is Miss Cecilia Oliphant. And at 36 years, she decides that she has enough strength and courage in her bones to take a voyage. And her first stop is, and then finally she comes to India. And what a journey she has. So her first step into the country and she's already meeting royalty and she's with royalty, and all of her experience are just so extra. And after that, she in 15 years she gathers the experience of all the educational fields that she can. She is the secretary and captain of the Bhopal Girl Guides. She is also the principal of SPG Anglo Vernacular School in Kanpur. And then thereafter she became the vice principal of Queen Mary High School. And that's just so amazing, because she realizes that she has this talent to work in the education field. So she came to Dehradun in 1935, and there she's hired as the matron, as the dame of the Hyderabad house by the Doon school. So she works in the Doon school also, and then she also works in Colonel Brown,
Okay.
where she works as the matron at the Longford house.
Okay.
And all the while she's working in all of these prestigious schools, she's harboring all this experience. And now she finally has this dream to open her own school. And did you know that Welham, both the schools, it was first just going to be Welham Girls,
Okay.
because I didn't. But it's an interesting story right there too, that again, in the author's words, the Doon school was born in 1935, and its headmaster, Mr. Foot, was then finding it difficult to get new boys as per his exacting qualifications. When he learned of Miss Oliphant's plans of setting up a girls' school, he successfully persuaded her to open a school for boys instead, which could then become a feeder school to ensure a regular flow of admissions into his own school. So he basically influenced her to open a school that would also make his school work.
Right.
How intelligent.
Yeah.
So in 1937, she opens Welham Boys. She has started setting up, but she doesn't have any funds. So her mother helps her. She gives her £1,000, and so she names her mother as the founder of the school. And that is what she also tells when the school opens all her students and all the faculty, that her mother is the founder of the school. And she gives all her dedication and all her recognition to her mother. And that's such a beautiful story in itself. Did you know that Kareena Kapoor Khan went to Welham Girls?
I did,
It's
but
amazing.
not a lot of people might know. Yeah.
I did. And I was like, why don't we have these on posters? Like, once again, we should get these on posters. Because why not? We should publicize this. After this, the school we are going to cover, I have to say, the third school is on this list purely because I am biased. It is my alma mater, St. Joseph's Academy, and I am in love with my school. Thank you very much. So, the author is also in love with St. Joseph's Academy, mind you. So I am totally going with the author's vibe. When he starts writing about schools in Dehradun and the school town of India and his introduction, he states this specifically of how he used to attend another Patrician Brothers Association school in Lahore, which is the St. Anthony School, and how for a few years he attended that school, and how proud he feels on attending that school, because all three of his children have attended St. Joseph's Academy.
Yeah.
Which woo Josephites all around the world.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's amazing what all he writes about St. Joseph, because half of it even I didn't know. And like, I've been there for 13 years. So he starts talking about St. Joseph's Academy, and in his introduction, he has the line, "The rush for admissions is so great that sometimes the principal has to go into hiding during admission session rush."
That is so true. That is so true.
I can prove that is true. Like, we would have our lunch breaks, and maybe we had to go talk to the secretary office and talk to the secretaries. And there would just be this mammoth of a line of parents, of all these desperate parents just waiting to have this one form so that they could fill it out and get admission into the school. Also, because we reached the pinnacle of admissions. St. Joseph's also has a secondary preschool for, it's a preschool that is the St. Patrick's Academy. And while that was happening, while St. Patrick's Academy was just setting up, we were in high school, I believe, and we were asked to submit photos and drawings of how the symbol should look like and model it after our own symbol. And so he was so fascinated that, oh my God, we get to design it. Wow. But yeah, he has all these anecdotes and all these stories about it, of how the school originated and how much hard work brother A.M. Kyo went through, who was the first principal. And as strange as it might sound, like, even though right now there is so much rush to uh, be a part of St. Joseph's, it wasn't so at the start. Actually, it was the complete opposite. At first, there were barely any students and there was barely any admissions. And so they had to do so much, they had to persevere so much. And because they even took a bus, like they even procured a bus for the students to take them to and fro from their houses, but nothing. And then finally in 1953, it came to be that there were 800 students finally, and everyone was just rushing to be in St. Joseph's, and it was amazing.
Great.
So I
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vidushi. I'll have to cut you off there because, of course, I am also a Josephite and I would love this to go on for ages and ages. But if you want to know more about the history and the connect with the author and some really amazing facts, anecdotes about these schools, you must pick up the book, of course, Dateline Dehradun. And okay, now I wanted to discuss the first part of the book, which tells us about a lot of things. Amongst those are, of course, Dehradun weather, the institutions, FRI, IMA, how the author was a stringer, and of course, ONGC, which he has written another book altogether about. Sir George Everest, I mean, Survey of India. He has talked about all these institutions, and I won't go into deep into it because it will run for another 1 hour or more. But a line which I really loved from the introduction, he mentions in the introduction a beautiful paragraph which I loved. From a small quaint town, Dehradun slowly grew into a larger town, and so did I. From a teenager, I jumped to my adulthood, bypassing the years of adolescence. In a way, the town and I grew in a togetherness of sort, and I seriously felt as if the town was my sibling. Over the past 70 years, Dehradun and I seem to have developed inextricable and somewhat unusual ties, more like an umbilical cord. And this was so beautiful. If I were to write something like this, if I could ever write something like this, I would write this, period. I mean, no changes at all. So in the beginning of this first section of the book, the reader really gets to know about Doon. Not the people, just about Doon. He talks about the railway station, first of all, how the line from Haridwar to Dehradun was made, and therefore the connectivity was complete for Doon. And this was way back before the partition. He talks about the Dehradun weather, and that was very interesting to read because all of us, Doonites, proud Doonites, love to boast about our weather, right? We are the best in India, in the world. Some people say that it's the best in the world also. So he talks about that, how, even in June, the electrical shops never used to stock up on fans. If you had to buy a fan, you had to go to Saranpur. So that was back in the 50s, 60s, there were no fans. It was so awesome, the weather, even in June. The slight summer that would happen would be in June, and that too, you won't feel the summer, right? So those are some facts which I loved, and for the old timers and especially people, even people from outside of Doon would love these facts. In between, he talks about many civil servants also who have served in Doon and are from Doon, like the very famous Surjit K. Das and others. Uh, but my favorite part was when he talks about the coming up of ONGC, and I have read his previous book, An Untold Story, ONGC, and it was quite in depth. But here also I found the same DNA, and I loved revisiting it again. How Mr. KD Malviya was involved deeply in the formation of ONGC and how it has contributed and made this city very cosmopolitan because the Bengalis came in from all across India and made it. And with the partition already, so the entire Doon city became very cosmopolitan in its nature, and it still holds true till this day. You have a slew of cultures here. There are multiple cultures in this city. He talks about his tryst with journalism, and he did a great job at that throughout his life. But in the beginning, of course, it's always a struggle being a journalist, but he worked up the ranks with his amazing writing and professional attitude. He tells us that when he was working, later on when he was working as PRO, at most times he would finish all his work before afternoon and everybody else was working. So that was very, great to know. And everybody, all the employees, other employees were jealous of that. That this guy doesn't seem to work hard, but he used to finish his work on time. I mean, I'm not praising him, just that it's the truth and facts that are stated in the book. Also, he mentions that he was a very frequent flyer when he started his own business back in the day as an entrepreneur. He was a very frequent flyer. He must have had like billions of miles on his card if there were any card back then. And he was called as the man with the book. As the man with the book because he always carried a book everywhere he went. So that's something I really loved being a bibliophile myself. And I remember telling an audience at a local social club where there was a literary session, and he told this to everyone, and everybody was like, "Okay, this guy is old," and they were not very, how youngsters, shun old people sometimes. Nobody was interested, but the moment he started talking and telling us about the history, and he kept on talking for 10 minutes, and I clearly remember that day, the first time I saw the author in flesh. So all these things, he talks about the IMA, the history of IMA, and one point of time, the cadets were also involved in firefighting. And that was weird because there were not enough personnel. So the cadets were requested to double up duties as police officers and firemen for a bit, for some instances. And that was weird back in the day. I'm talking back in the day. And in one section, he talks about during partition, the GCs who opted for Pakistan and were supposed to go there, they were escorted so properly and so swiftly around that time because it was a dangerous time, the partition. So great facts about IMA, people who are aspirants and who have been cadets before might read about them if you don't know them. A very interesting part is about FRI, and I mean, nobody took forestry seriously, and it was just the Britishers who were very interested in forestry because they wanted to build a lot of infrastructure like those even in railways they wanted to create those berths and all with the salts of this valley, and so they needed an organization which would research all of this and scientific bring on some scientific nature to forestry and take care of the environment and forests. So that's why they established the Forest Research Institute, and it was earlier called Imperial Institute, but later on, of course, Britishers loved those terminologies, imperial and stuff. They just loved them. So they did all of that. He talks about survey of India, and in a part which was quite interesting for me, he talks about this person called Lala Narayan Das, who was a bookseller, and he inspired a whole generation of 100, 120 odd booksellers, an entire generation, and these generations established booksellers across the country, and some of them in Dehradun, the English Book Depot, Book World, what is the other one? Natraj Book Depot. All of them are connected to Lala Narayan Das, who established this culture of book selling, distribution, etc. So these are some facts which Doonites and people outside from Doon should read, because as you know, book selling is dwindling, booksellers are dwindling, readers are dwindling slightly. So a person who had the vision of, starting all of that, and Mr. Raj Kanwar has done justice to all of these things and more. I'm missing a lot of these things, but you have to pick up the book, of course. And enough of me rambling. I would love to go to everyone. And final word, why everyone should pick up the book, be it Doonites or non-Doonites, and then we'll close the podcast. Let's go to Divya first.
Yeah, guys. So if you are enthusiastic about reminiscing nostalgically about those good old days, this book is for you. If you are interested about getting to know more about the street, the streets you visit every single day, the malls you don't know about, the bookstores, the people, the houses, the structures, the feelings, the traditions, everything will be in this book, because history always gives us something to rely on. For the present to exist, the history must. And the best part about the book is that it's not boring, unlike what the impression I got when I first got to know about it. But it's not at all boring. It's an interesting history book, and do read that if you like. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go to Shubhi.
Well, one of the major reasons that why you should pick this book is whether you are living in Doon or even not in Doon, even if you have never been to Doon, even if you're living anywhere in the world, why you should read this book is how such a small city is even home to such great institutions, to such great personalities that are inspiring lives across the world. And how it is that, many times we come across this notion that if you want to make big name, you should be living in a big city. But the book over here, the personalities, the experiences, the institutions that I mentioned here, they just break that, perception of yours.
What is so interesting about this book is that even beyond being a book just about a small town like Dehradun, and just being about a place, it's the essence of the book lies in that it's a giant story of how to overcome hardship, not just from people and all the places and all the stories that are in the book. Everything is about how there was a tough time in all these people in Dehradun, and it passed, and it left a legacy that was all about positivity and strength and work, and that's just great.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I forgot to mention that the author, Mr. Raj Kanwar, has mentioned how he graduated from DAV and he didn't have a job for a while. And he was just hanging around Karanpur and Rajpur Road, having tea at those Nukkad tea shops. And, Vidushi says it rightly that there is a struggle there, which in the book he has shown, but he has not tried to gain sympathy for that. He is a hard worker. He loved words, and he has done justice to whoever he has mentioned in the book. And I think this deserves maybe a sequel also. I mean, I would request the author to come up with a sequel where we could know more about other people, and perhaps get into the contemporary stuff also, because we have already covered a lot of nostalgia. So the overall impression about the book is that, rightly said by Divya, that when you first notice the book, it is so thick, and you get scared by it. But it's pretty interesting, and this has to be on your shelf. Let me tell you, this podcast on art, if you are a Doonite, or you are curious about Dehradun, the history, or you love the schools of Dehradun.
The book has a very good collection of the photographs, which
Yes,
make the incidents and the people
yeah,
mentioned very personal to you as you read.
true, true. And I completely forgot about the photos are awesome, but I completely forgot that he has met so many prime ministers throughout his career. So, and
Yes.
including the first prime minister, and he met him also, and it's a complete it's a saga, to be honest. So, on that note, thank you everyone, thank you team, and. Looking forward to more such awesome podcasts. And until next time, thank you so much. Do check out the book on Amazon. It's available there in paperback and hardback. And see you soon. Thank you.